Okay, our next essential question is how do I identify the range of a set of numerical data? I want you to take a look at these two dot plots. We have plot A on the left, we have plot B on the right. Let's take a look at plot A. What's the mean? Well, I can add them up. 3 plus 3 plus 3, which of course is 9, and then divided by 3 because I have three numbers, and my mean is 3. The median, well, if I were to put those numbers in order from least to greatest, the number in the middle, 3. How about plot B? In plot B, again, the mean, I'm going to add them up. I have 1 plus 3 plus 5, which is going to give me 9. And then when I divide it by 3, because I have three numbers, I've got a mean of 3 again. And the median, if I put the numbers in order and find the number in the middle, the median is also 3. So in both plots, plot A and plot B, the means were 3 and the medians were 3. But look at plot A and plot B. They're different plots. They're not exactly the same. Even though we have the same mean and the same median, we do have different data. Let's talk about another way that we could describe data. If you look at plot B, you can see that plot B is more spread out. You've got all of these dots here, 3 of them, but there's spaces in between. Whereas in plot A, all of our dots were close together. Another measure that we can use to describe data, a measure of variability, is called range. If you look at workbook page 339, we're going to be talking about how you can calculate range. Jayla and Sophie are members of a 6th grade basketball team. The dot plots below show the number of points scored by each player during the first 10 games of the season. So Jayla's is on the left, Sophie's is on the right. The range is a single number that summarizes the variability, there's that word, variability, of a set of data. You can calculate the range of a set of numbers by subtracting the least number from the greatest number in the set. So a range of variability, or a measure of variability like range, is used to talk about how spread out the data is. If you remember plot A, all those dots were close together, but in plot B, all those dots were a little more spaced out. The spread was a little bit wider. Let's calculate the range of Jayla and Sophie's points per game. In Jayla's, it looks like we have a greatest number of points of 6 and least number of points is 2. So that means Jayla's range is 4. However, if you look at Sophie's range, she has the greatest number of points being 8 and the least number of points being 0. Sometimes she scores 0 points. So her range is 8. That tells me that Sophie's data, Sophie's number of points per game, is very varied. It's spread out. It's a little bit different, and you can't always predict how she's going to perform. Some days some games she gets 0 points. Other games she gets 8 points. So her data varies. Her data is a little more spread out. Her data differs. Whereas Jayla's is pretty close together. Sometimes she gets 2 points, sometimes she gets 6 points. If you notice, she's got all those 4-pointers in the middle. Hers are a lot closer together. So I can probably predict that Jayla will get, somewhere between 2 and 6 points. Sophie's is a little harder to predict because her data varies so much. The next part is calculating the mean and the median number of points per game for Jayla and for Sophie. I'm going to let you solve that on your own. Practice finding the mean and the median for both Jayla and Sophie's points per game. And towards the bottom of page 339, we're going to talk about how we can use the range in some of our, with our other measures of central tendency to make predictions and to describe the data. So suppose you calculated the mean and the median for each of the other players on the team. Would your answers be the same as the mean and median for Jayla and Sophie? Or would your answers be different? Explain. Well, remember, we only looked at 2 people on this team. There's a lot of people. Do you think they're all going to be pretty similar to Jayla or pretty similar to Sophie? Probably not. I would say the answers are likely to be different. Sorry about my chicken scratch. Because the data will vary from player to player. I cannot predict how all the other players will be and how many points they will score, because everybody's different. Every player scores differently. And number 4, all 3 measures, mean, median, and range, describe the data in some way. What does the range tell you about the data? Let's see. The range describes the spread of the data. So it talks about how spread out the data is. Remember, Jayla's numbers were pretty close together, but Sophie's numbers were really spread out. Hers were a little more inconsistent, whereas Jayla's were more consistent. So I guess we can say the range provides a sense of consistency. Okay, so here are the takeaways for lesson 8.7a. If you want to talk about range or find the range, it's basically when you subtract the least number from the greatest, and it's a single number that summarizes the variability, right? How spread out it is, how much it differs, and that's exactly what we have here. The bigger the spread, the more varied the data is.